What's good, YouTube? It's your boy MMA Plug here. You know what I'm saying? Welcome back to another video. And in this video today, we're gonna be doing a quick recap of UFC Fight Night, Royval versus Kape. And for those who missed it, I'm sure y'all seen that Manel got a stunning first round knockout TKO finish towards the end of the round. And wow, honestly, I really feel like that's like one hell of a statement from Manel. You know, for those who watched the breakdown video and from the video before, like we seen that I definitely had Brandon Royval winning this fight by submission. And honestly, I gotta admit, I was kind of really shocked to see that Brandon Royval didn't really implement his wrestling game more in this one. You know, I thought for sure he would have been more on the front foot, you know what I'm saying, trying to, like to try to, really back Manel up, get him against the fence so he could, try to implement his grappling game, because I feel like if the fight was to get down into the mat, I feel that Brandon Royval could definitely had a significant advantage when it came to the grappling in the jiu-jitsu game, but I was real surprised to see that he did. Especially like if you watch the Joshua Van fight, I thought for sure he definitely would have took his more regular approach. Trying to be more well-rounded instead of like like really becoming like real like one-dimensional. Basically. But yeah, man. But we gonna get started on this recap. We want to start from bottom to top. So first fight of the night, we had Jamie Lehor and Teresa Bleda. This one I did take Bleda to win. I was wrong on that one. You know what I'm saying? But I did pick Teresa in that video from before, but I figured, after the 2-year long layoff, what I'm saying, almost basically 3-year layoff, I thought for sure that she definitely would have came into the cage, a lot more focused and a lot more motivated, but it seems as if Lynn Horth, she was just really just on it. She was really just on that from the very opening horn, and she ended up getting the TKO victory in round 1. Later, she did control her for like a minute and 20 seconds, but if you watch the fight, like Lynn Horth, she was just really just landing she pretty much landed everything in that one, through 24 strikes, landed 18 of them. Meanwhile, Bleda threw 12 and only landed 2. So that was really, to me, the big difference in that one, the amount of strikes landed, because as you can see, like Bleda, she controlled her for about a minute, but she didn't really do any damage. And I just feel like it just seemed as if like it was real clear that Bleda just probably didn't really take this fight camp as seriously as she should have. Maybe she took a very long time off, because like it's real hard to say like what these fighters really do, like when they're like when they're really coming off a very long layoff as she did. And it just comes down to like, what were you really doing during the layoff? Like, were you really training? Like, were you really putting in that work during that time off? And I don't know. I mean, like, the odds maker seemed to think she was, but I don't know. Maybe that just wasn't the case, man. But it's gonna be real interesting to see what the UFC does next with Teresa. And as far as for Jamie Lynn Horth, maybe it's time for her to start getting her up in the top 15 rankings after her performance and after her performance last night. Now, next fight on the card was Alan Fry and Guilherme Pat. I did take Alan Fry in this one as well. And now for the guys, who did watch this fight, Alan Fry, he had almost 8 minutes of control time. You understand? But but if you really paid attention, you know, people would just look at the fight and just be like, oh, you know, like he landed around the same amount of strikes, close to the amount of strikes that Guillermo Pat landed, and but he had like also way more control time. You know, you would think like, oh, you know, like he's got to win the fight, you know, but wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like scoring isn't just go off, you know, off a number of strikes landed, but it's also like damage matters. You know, damage matters. Like when Guillermo landed on Alan Fry, every single time, like every single time the Guillermo landed on Alan Fry, you would just really just hold your breath, you know, because like it was just one of those things where it's like one more good follow up shot and Alan was out, you know, but shout out to Alan Fry, you know, he hung tough, you know, he definitely ate some real big strikes from Guillermo Pat in that one, and Guillermo Pat, like he absolutely dominated the fight in this one, and Guillermo Pat absolutely dominated in this one, and he looked real impressive in his debut, and you know, Alan Fry, you know, obviously, you know, to remain undefeated in Alan Fry, he suffers his very first loss professionally, and now it's gonna be real interesting to see what's next for him and what Dana decides to do with Alan Fry next. You know, yeah, like it's a real stacked heavyweight. It's a real the heavyweight division is pretty open. You know, maybe Guillermo Pat could also potentially fight another guy that we're gonna get to in a little bit on this recap show, and maybe those two could fight next. You know, two heavy hitters. You know, I feel that definitely could make a great fight at heavyweight. But we gonna see what's next for both of these guys in the future. Now, next fight we had. Now, the very next fight we had on the card, we had Luana Santos and Melissa Croden. Luana Santos, I did take Luana Santos in this one. And Luana Santos, she did exactly what I thought she would do. I just felt she was going to be the more cleaner fighter, you know, when it came to strikes. And just like, as far as, you know, using her judo and grappling to her advantage. And I mean, I'm just saying, like, that was a very impressive performance by Luana Santos. She did exactly what she had to do. She pretty much controlled her the entire fight, you know, with over 9 minutes of control, over 9 minutes of control time. And she did exactly what she had to do to win. She grinded out a unanimous decision win over Melissa Croden, who definitely is not by any means not by any means an easy opponent, you know, and she just went out there and absolutely dominated her in that fight, you know, outside the first round, which I thought was pretty close, but the last two rounds clearly went to her, and, you know what I'm saying, what a job by Luana Santos to defend her number 15 ranking, and I think it's time for her to get a top 10 fight, you know, in her very next outing. Now, next fight, we had Steven Asplin and Sean Sharaf. I picked Steven Asplin to win by KO, you know, so, and he did exactly what I thought he was going to go in there and do, you know, he looked really good in there, you know, in his UFC debut, he landed well over 150 total significant strikes. And another fun fact for you guys out there, of the 172 strikes he landed, 170 of them were significant. You know, like he just put on an absolute clinic on the feet in his UFC debut, in my opinion. You know, if for all my guys, you know, who watch UFC, who watch Dana White Contender Series, I want to say it was like this past summer. It was recently. Yeah, I want to say it was like, probably want to say, if I had to guess, I think it was like back in either like September or August, I want to say, like around that range. You know, like he had the fastest knockout on the UFC Contender series at 16 seconds, like 16-second knockout. I believe it was the fastest or one of the fastest in Dana White Contender series history. And he looked real good against Sean Sharaf in there. You know, he just completely outclassed him on the feet. Like, the first round was definitely back and forth, but towards the end of this first round and for pretty much the whole second round, he started to really piece him up on the feet. You know, he was really working the jab, the 1-2, landed some very good uppercuts that got him up out of there. You know, absolutely dominant performance by Stephen Aspinall. And I personally want to see him in there next with Josh Hokett, or maybe even Guilherme Pat very next. Like, either Josh Hokett or Guilherme Pat, you know, but I personally think Josh Hokett needs to be the next opponent for him. You know, I know, like, there's been a little bit back and forth going on Twitter between the two of them, so I feel like that definitely could be a very good fight. And that, I feel like that should definitely be the fight to make next for Stephen Aspinall in that heavyweight. And we'll obviously see what they're going to do with Sean Sharaf next. You know, him now being 0-2 in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to find out. Next, we had Joe Anderson Brito and Isaac Thompson in this one. You know, Joe Anderson Brito, you know, he lost the first round, but then he stormed back in rounds 2 and 3. Landed 8 of 12 of his takedowns, controlled him for almost 8 minutes. You know, he did exactly what I feel he had to do to win the fight. I mean, I really feel, but Isaac Thompson, he definitely did his thing in there as well. You know, I personally thought the fight was a lot closer than I feel like than what the judges make it seem as. You know, but because I know, like, I mean, Thompson, he did land a whole lot of strikes in there as well. You know, he was doing really good on the feet. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was pretty much a wrestling battle the whole fight, but in the end, Joe Anderson Brito did just enough at the end to win. I feel it was the right decision, but it definitely was a lot closer. Like, you could definitely look at the numbers in this fight and feel as if it shouldn't have really been as close as what it really was, but I feel this was a very close fight, and I feel Joe Anderson Brito, he did just enough to come out on top. But it was definitely a great performance nonetheless by Isaac Thompson. I definitely do see him learning from this and coming back even stronger in his next fight. And Joe Anderson Brito, like, we definitely gonna see. I definitely feel we definitely gonna give him. I'm not sure who to give him next, but I feel both guys definitely need to go back to the drawing board in this one to figure out how they could definitely be better in their next fights for sure. Now, next fight, we had Neil Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov. And in this fight, Amosov, well, first off, I did have Neil Magny in this fight, yeah. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm going to definitely get clowned for that, you know. I'm going to get clowned for taking Neil Magny over this guy, you know what I mean? But, hey, I mean, hey, he passed the Bellator test, you know, what can I say? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, he passed the test, okay? And I feel as if, you know, like, he definitely did everything he was supposed to do to win this fight, you know. He took him down and did pretty much everything he had to do on the ground. He got him in the anaconda choke, and he subbed Neil Magny. So basically, he did exactly everything he needed to do in order to win. And I feel like now that he's now defeated one of the biggest gatekeepers in the welterweight division, I could definitely see potentially now that Dana White's going to try to, you know, push him to be. He's definitely going to push him for a top 15 fight next. You know, I just feel as if, like, it's going to be like one of those type of situations that Dana White's going to try to, you know, get this guy in the rankings as quickly as possible, especially after taking out, you know, one of the biggest gatekeepers in the welterweight division. So I feel like that's what they're probably going to do next for Amosov. And as for Neil Magny, I think it's time to hang it up, brother, you know. And it's no disrespect to him, but I just feel like it's definitely time for him to hang it up. And start considering retirement, man. You know, he had a great career, but welterweight division is way too stacked, and he's already really old. You know, he had a great career, but I feel it's just time for him to move on in the next phase of his life. Now, moving towards the main card, we had King Green versus Lance Gibson, another Bellator guy making his debut. Unlike the other Bellator guy, this Bellator guy looked absolutely garbage in there. You know, like, yeah, I took Lance Gibson to win this one, but and I really thought he had a chance to, but if you just watch the fight, you just clearly, this is why I say to all my guys out there, you know, like, there's just levels, like, when it comes to these guys coming from different promotions, you know, especially like when certain guys are coming over from like all these other promotions, like, you know, like One Championship, you know, Bellator, LFA, like whatever it may be, you know. There's just like it just continues to show, like, these guys continue to show why UFC is the best mixed martial arts promotion in the entire world, and I feel like that's why Bobby King Green, that's exactly what he did. You know, he put on an absolute clinic in there. He looked real comfortable in there. He looked more like the Bobby Green of old that we normally seen, and you know, I'm definitely happy for Bobby, you know, for him getting this much needed win to close out the year. You know, so like, as for what they're gonna do next, they're probably gonna give King Green probably another tough opponent next. You know, maybe they may give him another guy like this. You know, it's only time will tell. But as far as Lance Gibson, I feel this is definitely a really learning experience for Lance Gibson, and I feel like in his next fight, he's definitely gonna come back a lot stronger than this. He's definitely gonna take this performance and learn from it. Because if you're really watching the fight, like, he had plenty of opportunities to really, you know, assert his dominance in the fight. But it's just like, you could just tell, you know, especially like when he took him down. Like, he had opportunities like when he took him down, and he just didn't fully capitalize on it. And I feel like that's like what caused him this fight, because there was times like when he had clipped him, and then like he would take him down, but then it's like he would just like immediately lose the position and just like let him back to his feet. Like, he didn't really work hard enough to keep him on the ground and really make the fight more gritty than what it needed to be. You know, I just feel like he didn't really try to really make it dirty enough. You know, I just don't know if it was the nerves or whatever the case may be. I know his corner was telling him, oh, like, you know, like, move your feet, move your feet. You know, like, just really, you know, like, I don't know. I just feel like against a guy like Bobby Green, it's like a guy who's always keeping his hands low. Like, you can't just keep on moving around and letting him back you up, you know. Like, that's why you need to like throw more volume. And I feel like that's another thing that came down to it too. Like, Green, he threw more volume in this fight. You know, like, Gibson in 3 rounds, he only threw 77 strikes, and Bobby Green, he threw over 150. He threw 150 strikes. So I just feel like that was the main difference in this fight. You know, it came down to volume, and Bobby Green, he put more volume out there. So, and that's another reason why he got his hand raised. And my fault, I'm watching the game as well, guys. My bad. But yeah, that was definitely the main reason too. Like, he didn't really put enough volume out there, and that's the reason why. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't win the fight. You know, and but in the future, he's got to learn from that and really just, he can't be scared in there. Like, you gotta take chances, especially against a guy like Bobby Green, who like, no disrespect, you know what I'm saying? He's just really like, he's a good guy, but he's not really like it's just like his experience, and there's like what guided him to victory. You know, it wasn't even really more the fact that, oh, he was just better than him. Like, yeah, he may have been better than him that night. Like, his experience is what helped him carry him in that fight. But you know, even though I feel Lance was the better man in there tonight, but it's just, he just still has more room to grow. You know what I'm saying? He definitely got to, you know, get his fight IQ level up, you know, because what may have worked for you in Bellator is not going to work here. So, and I feel like that's what not a lot of guys at the Bellator level really get, you know. So he's going to have to change up, tweak some things in his fighting strategy moving forward. Well, anyways, moving on. Next fight, you know, we had Kennedy Nzechukwu and Marcus Buchecha. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had Kennedy in this one, and obviously this fight ended in a draw. You know, and again, like, once again, like, I feel like Kennedy, he was fighting a really dumb fight in this fight. You know, he had opportunities to really, I feel like he didn't really take enough chances. And then it's like when he did take chances, you know, like when he took a chance, like, and he put Buchecha down, you know, and then he let him back up and he got taken right back down again, you know. That's just a part where that just had me thinking, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have a chance to end the fight right there, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you letting him back up? You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't let a world class grappler like Marcus get back to his feet so he could easily take you down. You know, like, if you have a chance to end the fight right there, you gotta end the fight. And obviously, the point deduction in the second round for Kennedy, that really hurt him as well. You know, so I just feel like Kennedy didn't really take enough. He didn't take enough advantage of the opportunities that were right there in front of him, you know, to really end the fight. And I really feel like when you don't take advantages, you know, shit like this happens, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like a draw. You know what I'm saying? The fight, Kennedy could have easily won this fight if he just used his brain in this fight. You know, and I don't know. I feel like the corner was wrong for telling him to let him back up. You know, me personally, I'm telling him, like, you know what I'm saying, like, go for the finish. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like in that situation, like, when you drop, because, like, when he dropped him, he let him back to his feet. I was just like, bro, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why would you tell him to get back up? You know what I'm saying? Like, in that situation right there, like, you got to finish the fight. You know what I'm saying? You just have to. You know, but overall, you know, pretty lackluster performance from both of them. You know, I expected a lot more from them, but, you know, it definitely was a disappointing fight. Now, for this one, I had Milky Costa and Morgan Sherrar. And, hey, man, my guy Melky got it done early in round one. Head kick knockout. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like I said in the video before. You know, I said that I feel like this fight was going to be the fight that we really get to see, you know, Costa. I said Costa was going to be a really strong, great version of him this fight. You know, I said that. And it turns out that I was right. You know what I'm saying? Now, did I expect him to go out there and knock the shit out of him in round one? Hell no. I thought it was going to be at least like, you know, one of those back and forth type of fights, you know, where it could come down to the last round. But Melky Costa got it done in there early. You know, like, he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. You know, I said that this was going to be one of his best performances. And it turns out I was 100% right. And now what's next for him? I feel like what's got to be next for him is, like, I feel he definitely needs a shot at top 15. You know what I'm saying? Like, shit, like, book him and Kevin Vallejos next. You know what I'm saying? Vallejos is going to be number 15. Like, give Vallejos a shot to defend that number 15 ranking. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just knocked out Giga. Like, give Melky. I feel like now Melky needs a shot to get in the top 15. You know what I'm saying? Book him and Kevin next. You know, I feel like that would be a banger fight to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, book him on a fight night. You know what I'm saying? Make him a main event card for a fight night. Or even, like, you know, if it got to be the main event, like, just put him on the card and have them fight. Like, whether it's on an early prelim UFC card, you know, like, whatever. You know, I feel like that's definitely the fight to make next at featherweight. Moving on, we have middleweights. Cesar Almeida versus Cesare Usyk. And I ain't gonna lie, like, I took Almighty in this one. You know, like, I'm already thinking, I know what y'all thinking, like, yeah, I definitely did get cooked this card, you know, but, you know what I'm saying, it is what it is, you know, like, you know what I'm saying, I promise you, fam, you know, like, I done predicted a lot of fights correctly before I started this YouTube channel, you know what I'm saying, but it's all good, though, because UFC in 2026, we gonna get back, you know what I'm saying, so it's all good, you know what I mean, you know, so I'll take the L on this card, but, you know what I'm saying, like, when it comes to predictions, at least. You know, like, in this fight, you know, I had Almeida winning, and Usyk, you know, he was pretty known going into this fight for his crazy power and knockout ability, but it was really the wrestling, the grappling that really shined in his debut win at 185 in the UFC. And like you know what I'm saying, he landed 6 out of his 7 takedowns, and he had over 11 minutes of control time against Almeida. Like he did not give Almeida a chance to get the hands going, you know. And what it was a dominant, it was a dominant win from beginning to end for Olczek, you know, and you know he definitely does show he definitely is well rounded. Like we all know he has very good striking, but he could definitely be very well rounded when needed to be. And it was a great win for him. You know, what a phenomenal UFC debut. And I can't wait to see him back in there again. It'll be real interesting to see. As far as who I think could be next for him, I feel like a guy you can give him next could probably be maybe a Marvin Vettori type of situation. Yeah, give him Marvin next. You know, he's not in the rankings anymore. You know, I feel like him and Marvin. I feel like that could definitely be the fight to make next at 185 for Olczek. Now, to our co-main event, Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. You know, Giga, he was coming off a little bit of a layoff after his last outing, and honestly, Giga, he looked very good in round number 1. Like before he got caught with the spinning back fist, followed up by the elbows on the ground to finish the fight. Like he was looking really good in the first round. You know, it's just, you know, he was doing a really good job. You know, like keeping the distance. You know, pumping the jab. You know, he was doing a really good job, and I feel like, you know what I'm saying, it was just one of those situations like, you know what I'm saying, like you just doing really good and you just end up just getting caught. And that's like one of those situations, you know, he just happened to get caught with the right hand and then into the spinning back fist and it dropped him and he never saw it coming. You know, like Kevin, like he was just being like real patient, trying to find that opening on the inside when it opened up, and that's exactly what he did. You know, I said that was gonna be a key to victory for him, you know, saying to get on the inside and really try to, you know, make something happen. And that's exactly what he did. You know, so it was a great win for Kevin. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely now in the rankings at number 15. And like I said, book him and Melky next. You know, give him a chance to defend that number 15 ranking. You know what I'm saying? And finally, like, we have Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. And, you know, like, honestly, I don't want to say that I was really shocked at the outcome. I mean, I knew, like, going into it, there's a possibility that Royval could definitely get chinned in this one because we know in the past, Royval has been very chinny. You know, he got chinned by Joshua Van, you know, in his last fight as well. Like, he got dropped, you know. He was like, and honestly, I do think he was seconds away from winning that fight, and he got dropped in the last round of the fight. And I just knew that it was very possible for Manel Kape to potentially do the same thing, you know. Like, it's not that easy to make that quick of a turnaround at the end of the year to fight. And especially a guy like Manel Kape, you know, this fight, I don't know, I firstly feel like it's just so unfortunate because this fight got rescheduled twice. This fight was supposed to been happen, and it's just real unfortunate that I feel like it had to happen this way. I feel like the fight could have been a lot better if this happened earlier, you know, but at the end of the day, like, I have no excuses, you know, like, I had Royval winning, I had him taking the more wrestling approach, which I thought for sure he was going to do, like, but the more I was watching the fight and I seen that Royval just continued to stand with him, you know, that's like when I knew, like, I just had a feeling like it was something something wrong was gonna go down, and I was right. You know, because as soon as Kape put him down, like I just knew, like, yeah, it's over. You know, and that's what happened. You know, but you know, what I'm saying, shout out to Manel Kape. As far as Manel Kape and Royval, I feel like what's next to both these guys, I feel for Kape. You know, it's obvious that I feel like Van and Pantoja are most likely gonna run it back, like whenever that will be. So I'm pretty sure like all title challengers probably going to be put on hold until we know at least the status of Pantoja and how long he's going to be out for. But I feel like that fight is gonna happen again before any other contenders get a shot. I feel like Manel Kape and Tatu Tyra need to fight. You know, so I feel like that's gotta be the fight to make at flyweight. If Pantoja does get that next title shot when he gets back from injury, I feel that's the fight that's gotta be made next. You know, so it's gonna be real interesting to see what they do there. And as far as Royval goes, I honestly don't know who you can put next to him. You know, I don't know who should be next for Brandon Royval, but you know, like definitely a rough way for him to end 2025 with 2 straight back-to-back losses. But you know, I do feel like Royval will be back, and he's gonna be back better in 2026. Whoever he does fight next, you know, I think maybe he needs to shoot. Who knows? You know, I would say Asu, but you know, I know Asu and Moreno recently just got announced for UFC Fight Night for next year, and I don't know, maybe him and Perez could be next. You know, maybe that could be a good fight to watch next. You know, him versus Perez. You know, it's gonna be real interesting to see what Dana does for Brandon Royval in 2026. But as far as Manel Kape, you know, if he doesn't get the next title shot, then him and Tatu Tyra will be a massive banger of a fight. And I personally would love to see that one. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. This has been the UFC, the last UFC Fight Night. This has been UFC Fight Night Royval versus Kape recap show. You know what I'm saying? It's been a lot of good cards this year, man, and I personally can't wait to see what 2026 holds for UFC, man. You know, a lot of bangers last night, a lot of great fights, and I just can't wait for 2026, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be a great year, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep y'all plugged in on everything UFC, a lot of fight breakdowns, card breakdowns, everything UFC, man. I'm going to keep y'all covered, all right? You know what I'm saying? But this is going to conclude the post-fight recap show. You know what I'm saying? It's your boy MMA PLUG. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next one.